Hey, Tabby Star is dipping.
Tabby Star is dipping. What? Okay, you're either talking about cat food or something astronomical. I don't know which. Tabby Star is dipping.
Yeah, at the time of recording this, a lot of the astronomers I follow on Twitter are excited because Tabby Star is currently dipping.
Now, what is a Tabby Star and what does it mean to dip?
It's a star. It's kind of informally named after one of the astronomers that brought it to people's attentions. It's a variable star that its light fluctuations go up and down in a very unusual pattern that people can't readily explain at the moment. And so it's drawn a lot of attention of astronomers. And it's currently gone into one of its little down modes in the past 24 hours that people are excited about, and they're all pointing their telescopes at it to try to collect data.
Okay, so dipping means that the light output has dipped.
That's right. Which is not unusual in itself. I mean, variable stars are very common for whatever reasons, whether that's something intrinsic in the star itself that it varies its brightness, or there's eclipsing binaries and other stars that have things that pass in front of them, like exoplanets and stuff like that. But this one particularly is so unusual, apparently, that they don't have a working model about what is going on that's causing its light to go up and down that way.
So this would be different than like a pulsar, yeah?
Yes. Pulsars are very periodic. They have a very repeating pattern to them, so that they know what to expect.
So what's particularly unusual about the light pattern for this Tabby star? So why do they call it Tabby? Doesn't it have one of those crazy XLQ24579 unrememberable names?
It does have one of those names, but that's why they call it Tabby Star after the astronomer that first.
You sure it's not after his cat?
I believe it's a her.
Her cat. Oh yeah. Oh, gender bias there.
Yep. Yes. Tabitha Boyajian.
I'm sure you're butchering that name.
Yeah.
That's her specialty, though. Here.
Yes, but she's a stellar astronomer.
A stellar astronomer? Like she's like a really good one?
She's obviously, if you have a star named after you have to be pretty stellar.
Right.
But the reason a lot of people are excited about this star is that there's been a couple of ideas about what would cause this kind of irregular fluctuation. And the most plausible reason that I think of, that I agree with, there's some sort of large debris field circling the star from a planet that it might have consumed or broke apart, and there's all kinds of just a chaos of junk orbiting it. And that's why it's being blocked in such a random manner, rather than just one or two single orbiting objects. It's just a mess of stuff orbiting it.
Okay, so it's frequent, but not a easily discernible pattern of light variance.
But the other theory is it's evidence of an alien megastructure.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Now you piqued my attention a little bit.
Yeah, like a Dyson swarm.
Yeah. Ooh. So we have Dyson spheres. We have Dyson swarms. What is the difference between the two?
A Dyson sphere is a hypothetical megastructure created by a super advanced alien civilization in which they try to maximize the energy output of a star by completely surrounding it with a spherical structure. So every ounce of solar output is collected by the civilization in their orbiting sphere, like big eggshell around the star.
Right.
A Dyson swarm is just a orbiting fleet of solar collectors that aren't enclosing the entire star, but are just smaller scale.
Yeah.
It's not an enclosing sphere, but it's just a swarm of orbiting panels that can collect solar energy. Right,
basically a really well-positioned solar panel.
Exactly. And then this is a science fiction idea that's been popular to think about for decades.
Is it called Dyson because there was a sci-fi writer, Dyson?
Freeman Dyson is the person it's named after.
Scientist or writer?
He is a physicist, theoretical physicist.
Theoretical physicist. Is that really a field?
Oh, absolutely it is.
Really? Like, that kind of seems like, okay, I want to be a scientist, but I just want to theorize about really cool stuff. I don't actually want to do any of the really boring experiments. I kind of feel like they're sort of hanging on the edge of practical science. Is that my bias?
I think so, yeah.
How do you do a theoretical physicist experiment even? Are they all just thought experiments? That seems kind of like a cheap way out. Although it's a good way to do it if you don't have funding. You're not going to set up the whole like laboratory, right?
And this is coming from the philosopher.
Yes.
Complaining about theoretical physics is not really a sound science.
Oh, well, believe me, I don't completely recognize the limitations of philosophy. I'm just saying, like.
So anyway, the idea of a Dyson swarm has been around for a while, but the thing that Tabby Star has people excited is that if you were going to look to try to find evidence of a Dyson sphere out there in the universe, what Tabby Star is doing is exactly what a Dyson sphere would look like, what you would expect it to look like.
A Dyson swarm.
A Dyson swarm from a distance of 1,000 light years away, like we are from Tabby Star.
Right.
And this is a star that behaves differently from every other variable star that we observe. And so something's going on here that people don't quite understand yet. And that's why it got people excited. And that's why when the light has started dipping in the last 24 hours, there's been a lot of people pointing their telescopes at it to try to collect more data so we can try to understand what's going on here. Obviously, scientists prefer the more natural explanation.
The more boring explanation, is that what you mean?
Of course, because that's the more plausible.
Right.
But the people on the fringes who are into sci-fi and enjoy that kind of speculation are excited by the concept of a Dyson swarm being discovered.
Now, has anybody taken the pattern, not the sequence of dipping and non-dipping? Has anybody taken this pattern and then tried to decode it as like, if you presume that it's an intentional like communication, to see if there's a coded pattern there?
I don't think so, but I also don't think they have enough data yet, because it's only been the last 2 years I think they've been observing this star. So I think they need a lot more data of the light curve to kind of, if there is a pattern there, to weed it out. Right now, because it just seems like it's random.
Yeah. That would be one way to sort of set up a long-range message beacon in the middle of the universe. So say you had Dyson swarm technology, right?
Right.
Okay, on the one hand, yeah, you could collect a lot of solar energy. But you could also set them, or orbit them in such a diffuse pattern that it emitted a code.
A beacon.
Yes, a beacon, exactly. Like there is this enormous planet-eating monster around here, stay 37 parsecs away. And that would be it'd be a good long range to set up. Because if a civilization like ours could detect it, obviously. Yeah. So I'd be a little careful about the planet-eating monsters you might find there. Careful what you look for.
But that's another question. How would you encode a message like that would be basically just done in ones and zeros and could be understood by any potential intelligent civilization?
Well, yeah, you'd start off with the presumption that, okay, let's assume that we're not working on the same vocabulary and language, right? And then so I assume if you're a civilization that is able to create a Dyson swarm, you have a pretty sophisticated understanding of other systems as well, right? And so you would say, okay, let's go to the core of communication here and just set up some sort of intentional pattern. So you would sort of embed the rules of it, and then you would set each little Dyson swarmy up in an orbital pattern such that it would block the light from different angles. And I suppose the light emittent pattern would depend on where you're looking at it from. Like from our solar system is different than some other point in the universe. So this might be a beacon specifically sent to us.
The planet-eating monster is coming towards you.
Well, right. Well, so maybe there was some like intergalactic civilization, right? And they were sort of flying by and like, oh, look at that. There's going to be this meteor that's going to like totally destroy Terra in a couple of millennia. Maybe we should set up a little beacon so that like if they ever get their act together to like decode our message, they could like, do something about it. So they set these Dyson swarms up and then they like, hop on to the next galaxy or whatever.
Yeah. You think there'd be an easier way to tell us that though?
Well, maybe the ethics of this galactic hopping civilization are kind of lawful neutral or neutral. Maybe they're just like, oh, it'd be interesting to see if they figure this out. And they sort of put it up as a little puzzle for us. As opposed to just like, dropping a ship down and going, yo, you take care of this rock that's about to blast y'all.
I think a Dyson beacon would make more sense as a kind of a long-term project to warn people for a indeterminate length of time rather than just sending a focused single message.
Yeah. So I wonder if you can look at the data and say, all right, what would the pattern be like if you looked at it from another point of view? Like, you know, those crazy art installations where it looks like a complete random collection of 3D sculpture, but then when you look at it from one perspective, it like spells out "Hello World" or something.
Yeah.
Right. So maybe we're looking at it from the completely random part, but if you looked at it from 70 degrees to the left and north or whatever, it would all crystallize.
That's a cool idea. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if that's ever been in a sci-fi story.
Someone can. If someone wants to steal my idea, that's cool. You just got to plug the podcast for us. Maybe I'll write it. What else has been going on with Tom?
Well, I just got back from a little travel.
A little Paris travel.
Yeah, I was in Paris for a week, which is a nice little vacation, which is why we're probably a little delayed in our podcast schedule, but that's all right.
One of the reasons.
Yeah, one of the reasons.
We don't have to go into the other reason.
Exactly.
Yeah, so you had been there once before?
Yeah, I'd been to Paris once before, like about 18 years ago, but this time I got to spend a whole week there. It's just a wonderful city. So much to do. You
were there once before in your youth.
Relative youth, yeah.
So this was this was a more matured, middle-aged, cosmopolitan perspective of the City of Lights.
Sure, whatever you say.
And you were traveling with some family that had never been out of the country?
That's right. I was with my wife and her parents, who we were taking them on a trip to Europe for the first time.
And they had never flown out of the U.S.?
They had never flown out of the country. So this was their first trip to Europe, and they had a great time, too.
Did they enjoy, like, the travel experience? Like, you're on a flight, you're over the ocean, passports, all that business?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, traveling now is a lot more difficult than it used to be, like 18 years ago.
Yeah, right.
Just all the hassle on all the airports, but we got them through it. It's easier to go do international travel for the first time if you got someone with you that knows what to expect from all the different queues you have to get into.
That's good. Do you enjoy traveling?
I do, yeah.
Like just going from point A to point B?
I do. It's kind of weird. Maybe it isn't so weird, but I like the process of getting from one place to another, whether it's by airplane or train or car or whatever.
I feel the same way.
Yeah.
Like I do not share the same annoyance with air travel, for example, that most people seem to. Maybe it's just because I don't do a lot of domestic traveling for business, but yeah, I always feel like I'm on vacation. It's like,
yeah.
Oh, I don't have anything to pay attention to. Somebody else is taking care of all of this. I really enjoy like the little cup of soda and pack of peanuts and, just the newness of the environment. It's just, fun. Yeah,
totally. I mean, I'm always like anxious before we leave for a trip, but once I'm on the plane, I become totally relaxed after that. It's like once I'm on the way to the destination, that's when the vacation begins.
Do you have a particular seat in a plane that like you're all particular about, or are you like whatever?
No, I usually like to sit in the back. I don't know why, but whenever I book seats on the flights, I always try to get the same seat. That way you don't have to think about it, when you get on the plane. Oh, I'm just going to my seat.
Like it's the Tom seat.
Right, exactly.
You mean like it's always 27D, that kind of thing?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it alters based on what plane you're on, but I try to get around that by just trying to choose the last row.
The last row?
Yeah.
There's the websites, right, that will tell you, like, they'll give you a little stoplight visualization of these are the red bad seats, these are the green great seats, and these are the yellow, like, watch out for this.
Yeah.
Like, you don't want to be next to the loo the whole time, right?
Well, I don't know. Maybe you do.
Maybe you had that going on. We don't need to explore that.
But I didn't have the last row in these flights because we were traveling with other people who had different desires about where they wanted to seat. So you acquiesced to the group desire. Yes,
this is very nice of you. I like being in the aisle. I like being in the right aisle because one, I don't like to ask people to move if I have to get up and use the said loo. And I also like to stretch my left leg. I like to have that out in the aisle. I've been in the back where I've been like right next to the engine, and that's been very unpleasant. So I don't like being all the way in the back. But I also, unless I have a particular connection necessity, I don't need to be in the very front of the plane. Like that's another thing that like I don't ascribe to of what seems to be the general public approach, which is the seatbelt light goes off and everybody like jumps up and it's an absolute race to get off the plane. Like I can understand if you have 15 minutes to get there, right?
Yeah.
You should be able, okay, you have an actual need, but the vast majority of people don't need to get off, and save the 12 seconds.
That's kind of one of the reasons why I like to sit in the back, because I just let everyone just crowd themselves out and try to race to the front. And after it clears out a bit, then I'll kind of take my time to get off the plane.
Yeah. The whole experience is such an example of like, yeah, there's a minimum level of stress that you're going to encounter that you can't control, but like 80% of it is really self-induced. So you have to you can make the choice ahead of time. Am I going to stress over this or not? And then once you say no, you're just cruising, man. It's cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you had a nice flight over?
Yeah. And back. Yeah. And this time we're up in the front rather than the back. So we had a bit more leg room.
Nice. So you arrived, were you jet lagged at all?
A little bit. Yeah. That first day when you change time zones by 6 hours is rough. You got to basically stay up for a long time to try to get yourself synced to the new cycle.
Right.
But after the first day, it's pretty good after that. I usually have a harder time getting back on schedule coming back from, like, say, Europe.
Yeah, same.
Coming back, 5-6 hours.
Yep. Yeah. No, I've been to India a few times, and it's coming back is always rougher.
Yeah.
So you got over, so you arrived on the day of the election.
I did, yeah. That was a bit unintentional as far as our scheduling our vacations to arrive on the day of a very momentous election in France.
Right. So I presume you were out there, protesting and, rallying and doing all your ugly American things, right?
No.
Did you have a pony in this race, Tom, or are you like, whatever?
I am neutral, although I was pleased with the result.
God, that's a really political answer, Tom.
I should keep that to myself.
Okay, so there you go. So you arrived, and so what was your game plan? You hit the ground, and you're like, you hitting like the espresso and crusty baguette immediately? Or are you hitting the 5-star hotel? What's Champs-Élysées? What's going on?
No, we my wife and I kind of planned a little week of sightseeing and excursions for her parents, and we had different things for them to do every day, and then we kind of usually took the afternoons off to hit art museums and stuff like that.
Art museum. So there is an art museum or two in Paris.
Oh yes, there is.
There's the Louvre.
The Louvre, yes. There's more art museums per capita, I think, than anywhere else in the world in that city.
Is that true?
It must be true. I mean, there's so much high quality art, and that's in Paris. That's, if you're an art lover, you could spend a lifetime enjoying it all.
Did I tell you I spent less than a minute in the Louvre once?
I think you mentioned that to me once before. Yeah.
I had a 4-hour layover in Paris with a friend when I was in my early youth, and we drank espresso and just ran around the city and just check marked off the classic things. So we literally went in and out of the front door of the Louvre. We didn't see anything. We're just like, boom, we were there. Come on, Eiffel Tower, let's go.
That was your only trip to the Louvre?
That was my only trip.
Yeah, you have to put it back on your list then. It's a must-see place.
So did you hit the Louvre?
Oh yeah, spent several hours there. Yeah.
Nice. What are the highlights there?
Well, the most popular thing there obviously is the Mona Lisa,
right? Which
gets all the tourists gawking at it. You have to hack your way through the crowd just to see the thing. But that's very easy to skip if you don't care that much, because there's so much more art there that's not as famous as the Mona Lisa, but it's equally or better.
Mona Lisa is very small, is it?
Yeah, it is very small.
Like surprisingly so.
Yeah. I mean, just outside the room that it's in, I mean, it's a Da Vinci, but just outside the room, out in the main gallery, there's 5 other Da Vinci paintings all in a row that are as good or if not better than the Mona Lisa. But everyone just files in to see the Mona Lisa because it's the most famous painting.
Right.
It's basically famous because it's famous.
Right. People want to see famous things, man.
But there's 5 other Da Vinci's right outside that are amazing examples of his work. I don't think you'll find any other place in the world that has 5 Da Vinci's right next to each other like that.
Yeah, right. Is there a lot of security?
Yeah, there is. And in fact, there was a lot of security in Paris in general compared to the last time I went. A lot of people, a lot of police around with guns at all the tourist sites. So, I mean, they are taking the security of their visitors very seriously in Paris.
Right.
Tourism is a huge part of the city's income.
That makes sense. So is the Louvre, is it all like paintings on the wall kind of deal? Like you walk around and you're like, okay, look at that. Or is it different types of art?
It's mostly paintings. They have lots of sculpture there too. But it's all pre-modern art. So like 1850s and before.
Okay.
So it's mostly paintings, sculpture, and various art objects. Nothing too crazy.
So good place to go if you want like a high concentration of high quality stuff.
Yes.
Like a lot of bang for your walking around buck.
Yes.
Anything new that you saw that you were like, OMG, this is amazing?
Anything new? We were able to spend a lot more time in the Louvre than we did last time, where we did kind of a whirlwind tour of it. So we got to see a lot more things in detail. I don't think we saw anything new that wasn't there last time, but we just got to spend more time with it,
right?
Rather than just racing through,
right?
So more time to savor was the name of the game this time.
Was there any Van Gogh? Which I'm not going to attempt to butcher.
Van Gogh.
Is that it?
I think that we'll have to check with Mr. Engineering Guy on the Reddit, but I believe I believe it's Van Gogh.
Not Goff.
No,
okay. The ugly American would say Van Gogh.
Yes.
Okay.
But no, we saw more of his paintings at the Orsay Museum, which is right nearby the Louvre, across the river.
Oh.
There's a lot more paintings of his there, including the church at Auvers.
Featured in Doctor Who.
Featured in Vincent and the Doctor, yes. I did take a close look at it to see if there's any alien megafauna in the the church window, but I didn't see anything, no.
Ah, it's disappointing. That was I loved that episode, man. That like had me teary-eyed at the end.
Yeah, that was a really good one. But the Orsay, that's another great museum. Lots of Impressionist and Post-Impressionist art there.
What's your impression of Impressionism? You digging that?
Oh, I love it. Love it. Terrific.
So Impressionism, my like 2-bit understanding is that it's not trying to get it a realistic representation
right
of the thing that it's painting. It's literally an impression, and therefore it's like more diffuse.
Right.
Is that correct?
Yeah, that's a basically good summary, yeah.
And what was it only in vogue in past centuries, or is there still like an evolving form of Impressionism that continues today?
I think painting genre is a lot more diverse now than it was. So, I mean, you can find an artist that executes in many different styles, but
right.
At the time of the Impressionists, like the late 19th century, that was the in vogue style, especially of the painters in Paris. And so in Paris, there's a huge collection of just fantastic Impressionists in the museums, like Monet and Renoir.
It is pretty interesting that, like, at some point in history, somebody had to realize, you know what? You don't have to paint it exactly the way it looks. Like, you can actually do a little bit of, interpretation here. And that was like blowing minds.
Yeah, and they were radicals at the time, but
right
now it seems fairly old-fashioned.
On the opposite end, I remember going to see a painting in the Boston Museum of Fine Arts.
Yeah,
it was just a picture of a woman in a bathrobe drinking a cup of coffee on her porch in the morning, and it was a huge painting. It was like 4 or 5 feet tall, and when I walked into the gallery, I had to do a double take because it looked like it was even better than a photo. It looked like a person. Like I had to like really stop and go, oh my gosh, like that's so part of the amazing thing is that's actually a painting and not something real. That was pretty amazing. That's kind of the opposite of Impressionism.
Yeah, photorealism.
Yeah. Did you see a lot of kids in the museum?
A lot of kids.
Younger people?
No, I don't think so. I mean, what do you mean by kids? You mean like 20-year-olds or toddlers?
Anything 0 to 20, I guess.
No, I don't think so.
Huh. So what I'm thinking about is, when we have the time and resources, I do like to travel with my kids and expose them to different perspectives and cultures and such.
Yeah.
And so if we went to the Louvre and spent an afternoon, is it just going to be like dragging their knuckles around the exhibits, or are they going to actually be into it? So.
Well, actually, I take that back. We went to the Pompidou Center, which is
whoa. The what?
The Pompidou Center.
Pompidou.
The Pompidou Center. This is the modern art museum that's in Paris.
Oh, sweet. Okay.
There was a lot more kids there because there were teachers taking their classes through the exhibit halls there while we were there.
Oh, nice.
And they were all, seated in front of different pieces of art, and the teacher was lecturing. So we were glad to see that young groups of French school children being exposed to modern art.
Right.
And in fact, they were, at one point, we saw a whole group of them all sitting on the floor in front of an Yves Klein painting that I was happy to see. Here, I'm going to send you a link.
Okay.
So you can take a look at this work of art that was in the Pompidou Center that the children were getting a lecture on. Here, let me send that to you. And you can tell me what you think of this piece of work. I don't know if you've ever heard of Yves Klein before.
No, I've not ever heard of Yves Klein.
This is a work called IKB3 Monochrome Bleu.
Oh, dude, I love it.
Do you?
I wicked love it.
So why don't you describe for the listeners what you're looking at here?
I'm looking at a rectangle of blue. There you go. I'm pretty much looking, Tom, at a one-dimensional version of the 2-bit geek square.
Oh no! You're not. No, this is a very special shade of blue.
Oh,
It's actually called International Klein Blue, which is named after the artist who has adored this pigment of blue. This particular pigment was a creation of the artist in collaboration with some paint manufacturer, I believe.
I wonder what the hex value is.
Well, there is one. I think you'll look it up. But the point is that when you see this painting in the flesh, so to speak, it's a very vibrant ultramarine blue that just pops into your eyeballs, and you can spot it from a mile away. It's just it's an amazing color blue, and that kind of is the purpose of the art, I guess. In itself, is just this amazing color blue, which is why there's nothing else in the painting except for the blue. So you just meant, I guess, to ponder the color itself and enjoy it for what it is, rather than as a representation of something else.
For those coding it up right now, it's 002EA7. That's the hex value.
So this artist, Yves Klein, he has a whole series of these paintings, and they're scattered in modern art museums around the world. But they're all basically variations of the same thing, a canvas with just nothing but this, painted with this hue of intense blue. And right. I've seen his work before, like in the MoMA in New York and the San Francisco MoMA and other modern art museums. But it's always, I kind of like it. It's always fun to see one of his paintings in a museum.
Yeah, I'm sure that there are a certain percentage of stuffed shirt art critics that think that this is kind of BS, that you can just throw a color on a canvas and call it a day.
No, you guess to enjoy modern art, you got to come at it with a sense of whimsy, I think, sometimes too. That it doesn't have to be so serious.
Yes. I mean, it is art after all. I like the comment from one of my earliest philosophy teachers who we were talking about philosophy of art. He said he likes to have a very narrow definition of what great art is, but a very broad definition of what art is. So I'm just reading a little bit about International Klein Blue. Impact comes from the heavy reliance on thick and textured application of paint to canvas. Right, so he's not skimping on the paint. He's laying it on pretty thick there.
Yeah.
That's cool. So does he have is he one of these artists that he gets one famous one and then he just milks that concept? Like, is there International Klein Red?
No, I don't
International
think
Klein
so.
Green?
I think blue is the color he's known for, and he did a whole series of. He went through a blue period, obviously.
Right.
He was also, I think, a performance artist too. So he did lots of kind of avant-garde stuff. He wasn't solely a painter.
So that was cool.
Yeah, lots of art. We went to. We saw Monet's water lily paintings too at the Orangerie Museum. That was good too. We saw the Thinker at the Rodin Museum.
How did you like the Thinker in person?
It makes you think.
Were any of these really famous things kind of meh in person? Like, what's all the excitement?
Sometimes. I mean, sometimes art is just famous because it's famous, like the Mona Lisa, and they're kind of underwhelming when you actually see them in person. But some pieces that are famous are justifiably famous, and once you see them with your own eyes, you're just, wow! There's a reason why everyone loves this piece, you know.
Is it just because people weren't running around with phones and internet 200 years ago?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, before modern print technology and stuff like that, the only way you could experience great art is to go to museums.
Right.
When we went to the Orangerie Museum, there was actually several, I guess, art students there doing paintings from the originals. They're creating their own copies of original paintings, which is a great way to literally learn from the masters.
Yeah, and forgery could put you through college, so.
No. But, to try to replicate the techniques of past, masters is a way to develop your skill. And it was neat to see a few painters in the gallery taking advantage of that with their easels set up and all their paints sitting in front of a great impressionist and tootling away on their own canvas.
Well, so if you had somebody who, say you had a copier, right?
Yeah.
Who could get, say, like the Mona Lisa, where it was indistinguishable even from like the most professional art critic. Would it matter? And then you'd have like this fresher, longer lasting version. Why not just, recycle the old Mona Lisa for scrap? Right? It's the same thing.
Yeah. Well,
indistinguishable.
There is a copy of the Mona Lisa that's in one of the museums in Spain, I think the Prado. That was a contemporary copy of the Mona Lisa done around the same time as the original was painted, but it's in a lot better shape. So it's the colors are a lot more vibrant. Right. Let me see if I can find that for you so you can take a look at it.
Yeah. So to me, this is the way that we preserve. If we want to preserve things that can't be analog things that can't be preserved digitally, is that you evolve. Did you just send me a link?
I did.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, I'm not gonna be able to tell you if this is any different than the original Mona Lisa, but I don't have that kind of eye.
Yeah.
Mona Lisa Prado's version. Oh, interesting. Yeah, so this is exactly what I'm talking about. You need to evolve. I mean, artists are starving the world over. It's not like, we actually hold them in high economic regard in society. So we should like evolve another class where all you do is copy stuff. And then once it is indistinguishable from even the most expert eye, that then becomes the new version. Because you think in like a couple thousand years, the original Mona Lisa is not going to be preserved. Even if you do I know you can do preservation techniques on the original. You do that 5 or 6 times, how much of the original remains, right?
Yeah. It's the ship of Theseus question again.
What is that?
The ship that has its parts replaced one by one until it's a completely different ship.
I like that. It's like the ship of our bodies, Tom, right? It's like, what do they say? I don't know if this is a myth, but it sounds correct. Every 8 years, all of the cells in your body completely flip over. So physically, there's nothing that is you that's the same from 8 years ago. So
can the same phenomenon be applied to art? Is the Mona Lisa the actual paint on the canvas, the creation of Da Vinci, or is it the idea that the image of the Mona Lisa is his creation? And if it's replicated or duplicated, is that still Da Vinci's art?
Yeah, I would say yes, because all the Mona Lisa is a configuration pattern of molecules and atoms. I mean, even without restoration, 10 years after he painted the Mona Lisa, it was different. So it's got nothing to do with the actual, those particular atoms. It's the pattern of configuration. So it's like you're not your body, you're a pattern that holds it together.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of the paintings in the Louvre go through continuous and active restoration to brighten pigments and remove dirt. I mean, at what point do you draw the line between the artist's original creation and what you now see in the museum? And that's an ongoing debate among art historians, I think.
Yes. Probably that only really matters to art historians.
Right.
I wonder if you're a restorator of one of these things and no one's paying quite close attention, you might, throw another leaf on here, put the mustache on the Mona Lisa,
Yeah.
Nice. So you hit the museums. Did your family like the museums?
Yeah. My wife and I are art enthusiasts, so we spend a lot more time in the museums than my in-laws did. But
are you patrons of the arts, Tom?
Patrons of the arts. What do you mean?
Oh, I don't know. Like you said, you're an art enthusiast.
Well, I don't have lots of art hanging in the walls of my house, if that's what you're at. I don't have a secret stash of Vermeers in my basement.
No. My first image was like you in a tux with like your wife on your arm at some reception with a glass of wine talking about Vermeer. Yeah, does this not happen?
No. We're just casual fans.
Okay.
We go to the museums and wait in line.
With the rest of the scrubs.
Yep.
Now you had mentioned before you were heaping praise when we were talking about public transportation when you were in, was it Switzerland?
Yeah, Switzerland. Yeah.
About how amazing they have the train system set up. So how did you find the infrastructure of Paris in terms of getting around and subways and cars and streets and all that business?
It was pretty good. This time, since we spent a week, we spent a lot more time riding the metro, more so than we did last time because we were only there for a short time. So we were taking the metro all around the city almost every day. Worked great. You can get basically anywhere you wanted to go in central Paris pretty quickly.
Nice. Pretty huge metro, I'd imagine.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's dozens of different lines going everywhere. But hey, great system. It's better than trying to drive around Paris, which is choked with traffic all the time.
I was going to imagine, yeah. So that's the one would be encouraged to use public transportation, is that?
Yeah, I think so. We didn't take any taxis or anything like that except for to and from the airport. It was all walking and metro.
Cool. So how's the food over there? You a gourmand?
Not really, but the food was good. The pastries especially. Oh, it was such a pleasure having fresh pastries for breakfast every day.
When you say like what kind of pastries are we talking here?
Like pain au chocolat, croissant, that kind of stuff.
Pain au chocolat. What is that? Chocolate bread?
It's what Americans call a chocolate croissant.
You know, maybe I'm being a little too hard on myself for butchering language. Maybe it's just endemic of my people.
It is.
That's what we do as Americans. We take some refined, subtle aspect of culture and we just destroy it.
Yep.
Chocolate croissant. That's not too like cakey, desserty in the morning. It's like kind of nice.
It's wonderful. I had a pain au chocolat and tea every morning. Oh, beautiful.
Really? That seems a little too sugary for me in the morning. I mean, I'm used to my oatmeal, man. I got a pretty hardcore oatmeal habit, so having a little chocolate in the morning, I don't know. I guess it depends on the quality. If it was like fantastic, it'd be like a nice little.
Speaking of actually American sophistication, at one point in our walking around the city, we went into the Galeries Lafayette, which is a big shopping mall in Paris, and they had an amazing supermarket food store, like in the basement there, that we were just walking around, drooling over all the amazing food and pastries and all kinds of amazing stuff they had in there. And they had different shelves in the market for different international cuisines. And they had one shelf that was basically American food, imported American food.
Oh God, I'm worried.
You should be worried.
I'm worried about what you're about to tell me.
It was basically a whole shelf floor to ceiling of peanut butter and marshmallow fluff. And that was our contribution to international cuisine.
That's so terrible, man. Marshmallow fluff, really?
Yes.
I thought that was an extremely Massachusetts provincial thing.
It might be, but it's viewed as quintessentially American by Parisians, apparently.
That's hilarious. I didn't know that. So fluff in Massachusetts is produced in a city called Lynn, and the classic sandwich is a little kid would be a Fluffernutter with marshmallow fluff and peanut butter.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was known outside of like the Beltway here. That's hilarious. That's. I mean, I was joking about the Americans butchering everything, which is kind of true in a lot of respects. But we've made a decent contribution to society. I think that pizza in particular, even though it originated outside of the U.S.,
we perfected it. Yes.
Yes, and I think perfected it from multiple angles. Like there's amazing Greek style pizza in the U.S. There's amazing New York style, Chicago style, Italian style. It's like U.S. really took pizza and ran with it. So I'm pretty proud of pizza. That's our contribution.
So Paris can be proud in their amazing art museums, but we have pizza.
Well, would you rather have no pizza for the rest of your life or no art? If you had to choose.
I'd rather have no pizza, believe it or not.
Yeah. At this stage in my life where I'm not lactose intolerant, but I just don't enjoy a huge dose of dairy as frequently as I used to, I would probably say no pizza, but I don't know, man. There's some broccoli garlic Greek pizzas that are mwah.
Yeah.
Were your older family members interested in like the most classic touristy things like Eiffel Tower, Champs-Élysées,
Yeah.
Arc de Triomphe, just boom, boom, boom.
Yeah,
like-
they went around on the big tour buses too, because that's easier for older folks to get around using
Yeah.
the tour buses. And one day we took the train out. We went to Versailles as well. Spent most of the day at Versailles. This is the famous palace of the kings of France and Louis the XVI and all that. But I kind of found it very underwhelming.
Really?
Yeah, I was surprised.
Was it because of the reminder of the class inequity you were feeling for the peasants?
It might have been. It might have been that kind of, that kind of gilded opulence is a bit out of style right now, or a bit politically incorrect, I think.
Yes. It's like, hey, let's celebrate the incredible autocrats of the past. Yay.
But a lot of it didn't seem very authentic either. I like a lot of the rooms in the palace were basically just really fake recreations of what might have been there, 300 years ago.
Oh, okay.
The only room in the palace, the main palace, that seemed authentic to me was the famous Hall of Mirrors. All the other rooms basically were just set up as kind of like little museum sets. It didn't feel it felt very staged and not lived in as a home.
Yeah, I presume Versailles has been sacked over the years.
Yeah, there didn't seem much left that made me feel like I was in a 18th century palace, except for the Great Hall of Mirrors.
Right. Did you see the vomitorium?
What? No.
You know how, like, those crazy kings would, like, eat a lot and then, kind of empty out and then come back in?
I think that's apocryphal.
Is it really?
I think so, yeah.
I've always been taught that. I can't... Tom, that is a jigsaw puzzle I am not willing to budge on. That's a core belief right there.
Yeah.
Nice. So you had a great time. So that's good to hear. Did you do any podcast promotion? Do you hook up with any listeners?
Unfortunately, no.
No, nothing on the...
Our fan base is, I don't think, large enough to support a meetup in Central Paris.
Someday, Tom. Someday. Did you get into any hardcore political discussions over in Paris?
No. I don't think it's polite to ask people about politics unless you really know them. But
yeah, that's probably true.
Of the few people we talked to, I think the sense was there was a lot of relief that they avoided a bit of conflict. I think that might have been unnecessary.
Right. Did anybody ask you about American politics?
Thankfully, no.
You did not have to apologize.
Right.
That's good. How are you with the French language? Were you able to converse with the natives?
I did my best. I mean, when you're in Central Paris and you're going to places that cater to tourists, you don't really have to know a lot of French. As long as you can be polite about it and say, merci and s'il vous plaît and stuff like that. I think you can get by fine. But a few times you run into people who don't speak English and you have to muddle your way through, and you get through it. That's part of traveling.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I always get self-conscious that I'm going to offend them by using their language poorly, by butchering it as I often do.
Yeah, I think that's a little bit probably too self-conscious. I think any kind of attempt to communicate in a foreign language is appreciated by locals.
Oh, yeah?
Even if it's bad.
Okay. Yeah, I run into that sometimes here as well. Well, like I'll run into a native speaker of Spanish, for example. And I studied Spanish in school, but that was many years ago. So I have like a rudimentary, broken understanding of it. But I'm always hesitant to use it because I don't feel confident in its execution. But maybe I should just get over that a little bit.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. What's the worst that can happen?
Yeah, that's true.
You make a fool of yourself. I do that every day.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Anything else curious about?
On Paris?
Yeah. I got slammed in the train doors once.
How'd that feel?
Those metro trains, they don't mess around when they close those doors. Believe me. You get stuck in those doors, it hurts.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Once that buzzer goes, you better be on one side of that door or the other. If you're in the middle, look out.
Wow.
I felt the pinch of that.
Did you get bruised?
Yeah. It was.
Cool.
It closes pretty fast on you. But we were in a particularly crowded train that we had trouble getting off, and I just squeaked out at the last minute.
Nice.
On the flight back from Paris to Boston, John Malkovich was sitting in the row in front of me.
No way. Did you try and enter the back of his head and then see reality through his perspective?
Yeah, and then I got dumped out in the middle of New Jersey.
That's really unfortunate. Did you say hi to him?
I did not know. It's when you see celebrities, you should just leave him alone, I think, don't you?
Yeah, probably. Were you sure it was him?
Oh, yeah, it was him. He is immediately recognizable, and his voice is very peculiar. So,
were other people bothering him?
He got stopped by a few people passing by, saying hi, but for the most part, people left him alone.
That's cool.
Yeah. So I sat behind him for a 7-hour flight.
Wow. In the presence of John Malkovich.
Yeah. He was just a normal person, just like everyone else.
Right.
I think he spends a lot of time in France. He spoke fluent French to the flight attendant, so I think he goes back and forth a lot, probably.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, no, the few times I've ever met anybody famous, it's always been this like, oh yeah, you're just a person who happened to get famous. Fame is a weird thing. But it's good for you to prepare these things, Tom, when the podcast, reaches hundreds of thousands and your anonymity is broken and your face is pasted across the continents.
You're saying that I'm going to get bothered on the plane?
I think so, man.
With my distinctive voice?
People are going to want to... That's the thing. People will hear the voice be like, oh, you're Tom from 2-Bit Geeks? No way! They'll want selfies. They'll want to touch the beard. It'll be a whole thing, yeah. I think you get some problems ahead of you, man. You're going to have to prepare.
Yeah, I once met a guy that did a podcast that I had listened to quite a bit. And I met him in person once, and it was so freaky hearing that voice I knew from the podcast come out of a human mouth.
Right.
It was a little unusual.
Human mouth. As opposed to, a iguana's mouth.
Well, these people on podcasts, they're not real people. They're just...
That's true.
Digital bits coming across your internet feed.
You know what I've had kind of an unsettling experience of recently? So I listen to NPR quite a bit as my primary audio news source. And I've seen them come across the Facebook a little bit. And so they'll have videos of the people that are doing the bits of news and broadcasting and such. And so I get to see what they look like.
Yeah.
And it's never what my mind's eye think that they are.
Yeah.
And it's always a little like, whoa, cognitive dissonance, and I have to recalibrate. And I kind of don't like it.
Oh, yeah.
I kind of feel like I'm losing my previous conception of who they are.
Oh, my wife hates seeing what podcasters look like. She hates it. I mean, I accidentally showed her a picture of Scooter from the Sleep With Me podcast, and she turned away in horror. She didn't want to see his face.
Yeah. Who was the person that really jolted me the other day? That NPR, what's the money thing they do in the evening? Marketplace. So the host of Marketplace. Yeah, I saw him on, and I was like, no way. That's not you.
Yeah.
That's such a fake. So yeah, that's really, so I would wonder, so maybe, Tom, before the eventual veil of anonymity gets pulled back on the 2-Bit Geeks podcast, we could have some fan art, courtroom artist representations of what people on the Reddit think we look like.
That might be scary.
And then we can reveal, the actual, maybe in kind of a progressive reveal where we'll put a grid over my face, and then we'll take off, G7, and then we'll take off A5, and we'll see it slowly emerge.
Yeah. I hate to break it to the listeners, but you're going to be very disappointed. We're just two dorks, just like everyone else.
I don't know, man. I think I'm a fairly charismatic looker. I think. I think I could turn a head or two.
Yeah.
Particularly internationally. Do you know that Brother X has said that multiple occasions, and he's not just making this up, he's been...
Tom Cruise, you mean?
Yeah.
He's mistaken for Tom Cruise in Japan?
Yeah, he lives in Japan, right, so...
Well, I mean, I could totally see that. I mean, he doesn't really look like Tom Cruise, but he's got that American Tom Cruise look, and he's got the same height as Tom Cruise,
He looks more like Tom Cruise than he does like Tom Petty.
Yes.
But he looks nothing like Tom Cruise. So I wonder from our international listeners what celebrity we look the most like.
Well, I mean, obviously, you must look like the brother of Tom Cruise.
So that is not true. For one, I don't have dark hair like.
You're Tom Cruise's dorky brother.
And how about should I give a hint to my genetic stock?
What? Do you think people really care?
Dude, there's got to be somebody with the sketch pad out right now going, all right, I get this down.
Genetic stock?
Well, So I have not run a DNA analysis, although that's kind of a thing. Slight tangent. Have you seen this? There's these places now where you can send in a DNA sample, and then they'll give you, your 27% from this area of the world, you're 13% from this area of the world.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
I've done that. I know my haplogroup.
Your what?
My haplogroup.
I'm sorry, my thing fell out of my ear when you said that. Your haplogroup?
My haplogroup.
What is a haplogroup? It sounds like a Duplo block.
It's kind of your genetic origins. What fork of the human family tree that you are descended from.
Okay. Your haplogroup. So this would be somewhat correlated to, but not necessarily the same as your countries of origin of your ancestors.
Yeah, your patrilineal descent through your Y DNA.
Oh, dude, you're blowing my mind. My patro what?
Patrilineal, your father to son, father to son, father to son.
Okay.
Yeah.
As opposed to mother to.
Right, because that part of your DNA is passed basically unchanged from generation to generation. So if you go back in time, you can pinpoint roughly your genetic origin.
So your patrilineal is unchanged, but your matrilineal is changed?
Right, because your DNA passed from father to son, a certain segment of it remains unchanged as the DNA is mixed from generation to generation. It's copied intact, usually.
So when you do your blood analysis haplogroup
Yep.
results, you're only getting half? You're not getting your mother's side?
It depends on the test. I think there are some genetic tests where you can get a full picture, but I think the Y-DNA test is where it pinpoints your haplogroup is the most accurate as far as predicting your genetic origins, where your father to son genetic inheritance came from.
Okay. That seems a little weird that you would only care about half of it, though. I don't think I'm fully understanding this yet.
Well, that's just the most accurate information that you can get from your DNA is that descent.
Oh, it's not like a gender bias, like we only care about father's side. It's like if you tried to do your mother's side, it would become difficult because of its changing nature?
It gets mixed up after every generation, so it's harder to track. But your Y-DNA that you get from your father is for the most part unchanged down through the generations.
So it's accurate, but it's only half the picture.
And it's only a very small part of the picture because each generation doubles. So
right.
You're only getting one thread of the family tree going back.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah. So my genetic haplogroup is from Western Europe, specifically France. So
all of it?
Well, no, not all of it. I'm talking about the patrilineal descent. My genetic ancestor from father to son, father to son, father to son is from Western Europe.
Oh, okay. If you follow the one line.
Yeah.
I guess I'm thinking about a different thing because I've seen Facebook posts where people will say I'm 27% this, I'm 13% this, I'm 8% that.
That's the admixture test.
The admixture test.
Yeah, that's your genetic admixture. That's a different kind of test, I think. I haven't had one of those done, but I had the Y-DNA test done just to find my haplogroup.
I'd be more into the admixture thing.
Yeah, I think I'd like to do that too. Maybe we should do that.
That would be fun. So I do know that most of my ancestors, I should say I think that most of my ancestors are from Scotland, Ireland, Germany, and, what was the other one? I want to say Finland. Is that right? I don't know now. I'm sort of speculating because I did 3 or 4 generations of research once many years ago.
Yeah.
And that's sort of kind of where it ended.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing for people to realize, we talk all the time about, tribalism, people getting out of their national identity and all that stuff. And that is one way to kind of decouple how one thinks about oneself, because one would think there was a correlation, but not necessarily an equality between the countries of one's lineage and the ethnicities. Right?
Yeah.
That's the thing that people are always like, oh, cool, I didn't know I had this strain of ethnicity in my background.
That's kind of a uniquely American trait too. I mean, most Americans are a complete mix of all kinds of immigrant ancestors, more so than other countries in the world, because we're basically a country of immigrants. So
yeah. I mean, I was joking about the ugly American, but that is one nice thing about America. Mm-hmm. The melting pot.
I've done quite a bit of genealogical research on my own family, and so I know a bit about our national origins, but I'm basically half Irish and the other half mix of French and German.
There you go. We all come together.
Yep. So, after our last episode, as you know, because I've told you in between episodes, you inspired me to start a little gardening.
Oh, yes. We haven't had gardening update on your... Oh, okay. So did you have anybody tending to your little sproutlings while you're away?
No, but they lasted fine. I had to explain to the listeners after you were extolling the benefits and the pleasures of gardening. You inspired me to plant a couple of rows of peas in our vegetable garden and tend to them myself.
Nice.
My wife grows vegetables every year, but she set aside a little corner of her garden for me to plant some peas after your recommendation, and they've sprouted and they're coming up. And actually, in the last few days, where it's been really sunny and warm here, they've actually really shot up quite a bit and sending out their little tendrils to try to climb up the little fencing that's around them.
Awesome. How tall are they now?
5-6 inches tall now.
Nice.
Yeah, they're growing.
The tendril thing is really cool. Like, even if you just put like a little thing like close to them, the little tendril will find it and latch on.
Yeah, that's. I was actually really surprised and impressed by that. Looking at them closely for the first time, they got little curlicue bits on the end of their tendrils in order to grab hold of anything nearby, and so they can climb. It's like a great successive evolution there. Well done, peas.
Totally. And you can you can train them on whatever you like, different structures. So you can kind of like undo the curlicue and put it somewhere else and sort of encourage it to go a certain way, and then it'll go in that direction, So somewhat analogous to bonsai tree sort of clipping, where you're sort of like contouring it to a certain direction.
Yeah, so my little pea sprouts are getting to the size now where they're starting to reach out, so I'm trying to edge them towards the right direction.
Awesome. How many plants do you have?
It's 2 rows, so maybe about 2 dozen.
Oh, sweet. You're going to get a pretty good crop there, man.
Well, I hope so. I still have plenty of time left to kill them.
It sounds like you're pretty good, though.
Trying to water them regularly.
So you should definitely, once they start to bear their snap pea fruit, you should eat that right off the vine. That's the way to do it. In fact, literally eat it off. Don't break it off and then eat it immediately. Position yourself so that you can eat it while it's on the vine.
Lying back on a couch with a bunch of grapes, that kind of image. Is that what you're going after?
No, but that is disturbing. You know what? Kind of related. I was watching this video about are plants conscious?
Okay. Are you going to tell me something I don't want to know?
So no, they don't have a central nervous system, so they're not going to feel pain.
Yeah,
but they have done studies about that plants can learn. So there's this particular plant that if it senses danger, it'll curl up its leaves.
Senses what does that mean? Senses danger.
Oh, if you okay, let me. Or
does it sense someone approaching with a pair of hedge clippers or something?
All right, I'm gonna totally butcher this reference, but if it thinks it's gonna fall, what? I'm trying to make this so that you understand it. I should really get the video up. If you drop this plant, okay, then right before it hits the ground, its leaves retract.
Does it flip over like a cat?
It's similar concept in that the leaves, it pulls its leaves in. Okay.
Okay. Does it hit the ground and roll like a parachutist?
Oh, it retracts the leaves. That's all I'm saying, right? And so, but you can. I can't even get this. I gotta I'm pausing. I saw this and it was really cool. It was from this Science-y channel too. It wasn't from this goofy, You
sure it wasn't a cartoon?
Dude, I'm gonna get this. Plants.
It wasn't Doctor Who, was it?
Leaves.
It wasn't a crinoid.
What are you talking about, man? You're completely insulting me.
That's part of my role here on Two Big Geeks.
Okay, it's called Mimosa pudica.
Mimosa pudica.
The sensitive plant. The touch-sensitive plant.
The sensitive plant.
So if you touch it, then its leaves retract. It takes a lot of energy, though. And so it can learn when it doesn't need to do this. That's what I'm getting at.
I
About
see.
being conscious. I'm still butchering it though. So yes, please continue.
I've seen lots of plants that react to touching,
Right.
But I'm a bit skeptical about a plant that can know that it's about to fall and retracts its leaves because of a sense of impending danger. That seems a little anthropomorphic to me.
I found a few references to it, but not enough that I can watch it and then extract it in this podcast. But basically, there have been TED Talks about the roots of plant intelligence and consciousness.
Yeah.
It's obviously sounds fluffy at the point because it's like, well, what are you saying? That there's a plant whose name is, Roger, and it has a brain, and it's like, no, we're not talking about a central nervous system. But if you can start to ascribe attributes to a system that can't be biologically explained, for example, learning, and consciousness doesn't mean self-consciousness, right? Like a dog is conscious.
Occasionally, yeah.
And so is a cat. Like there's no argument about that, but there is argument about level of self-consciousness.
Yeah.
Right. And so what distinguishes different levels of self-consciousness in different different forms of life. And so there's a little bit more argument to be made for higher order primates, non-human primates and dolphins, and what kind of behavior exhibits consciousness and what the distinguishing features are between that and self-consciousness. And so you roll it back in between higher order primates and animals, and like a rock would be plants. And so can plants exhibit this kind of thing? So this is what it's getting at. It's not...
Yeah, I think there's no doubt that plants can react to their environment, but to anticipate something is a different story.
So that is the puzzle piece that I would just suggest so keep your mind open to that possibility. And that if you have a really negative reaction to this possibility, it may be that we're talking about a different definition of consciousness. Mm-hmm. I think there's something above reaction, but below self-awareness that is the possibility that this is exploring.
Okay. All right.
So maybe we can review some links to that next time when we can talk about plant consciousness. Because there's another interesting book that goes way fluffier that I really liked at one point that I'm sure you will not like. But that's a possible spectrum of consciousness, and we could sort of use plants as the inroad to that. Especially given, Tom, that you're now the father of these young hatchlings. I'm sure that like
the adopted father.
Yes. So you might want to go out and sort of talk to them a little bit. Tell them they're doing all right. And...
Yeah. I'll do some drop tests. Hey everyone, thanks for listening. Don't forget, if you like what we're doing, please leave us a review on iTunes or wherever you download your podcasts, and help get the word out by sharing us with your friends and family. We thank you for your support.